And then got it again.
I don't see it. Okay, got it. Yep.
And-
Yeah, I got my computer on too, but hasn't come up yet. But I got it turned down.
Jen, you'll have to do the comments because I'm on hotel Wi-Fi, so I'm on both the phone and the computer.
That's
I
fine.
lost Rick.
Yeah, Rick dropped off. As soon as he joins back on, I'll put him back in.
Okay.
There we go.
This thing ain't on Facebook yet, is it?
Yeah, it just popped up. I just shared it.
Is he? Okay.
Just
If
waiting.
you were on the page, Mike, you may have to refresh the page.
I did. We're good.
Yep, we are live. Just waiting a couple minutes for everyone to jump on. Robert, everyone's saying happy birthday to you.
Thank you, everybody. Ronnie's just jumped on too, so we got everybody here.
Perfect.
I'm just happy everybody was able to jump on and have some fun. I'm stuck on the road mostly 5 days a week, so what better way to have a little birthday fun and get on and let's talk some old school racing and tell some stories.
Absolutely.
Glad to be here and happy birthday, Robert.
Mark Anderson said happy birthday. Becky said happy birthday. Buddy Ryan's on. He said happy birthday. Mohawk Babcock is on. Said happy
Hey,
birthday,
Ronnie.
Robert. My mama said happy birthday. John Wilson. Getting all that love. Give it just a minute or two to make sure everybody has joined us. Richie Henry said Ronnie's not late.
No?
Nope. All our boys are right on time.
How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Good,
How-
Ronnie. How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
All good.
Good.
All
Jen,
good.
we'll give Mike a few minutes first to talk about how he got started at Palm Beach and a little bit about the site he's got going with that, and then we'll jump in and spend the rest of the time on Hialeah.
Sounds good. Daryl Gwynn said happy birthday. He's tuned in. Corey Crisafulli, happy birthday. Robbie McLeod, happy birthday to Robert.
Why do I look like the oldest person?
You're not.
It's
You're
the
not.
love.
I probably got you guys covered by a couple.
I'm the baby.
I'm 66. Rick, you're 65, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
the oldest.
And I'm 56. I ain't
I'm
far
the
behind
veteran.
you.
I'm the veteran.
And Robert turns 44 today.
And I feel like 66.
You're funny.
All right, so we figured we'd jump on, have a little bit of fun tonight with all our guys. Just to introduce you to the crowd in case you are under a rock somewhere and you don't know them. We'll start by how they're showing up on your screen. On the left, on the top is Mike Howell. Of course, I'm in the middle. Rick Williams, Sunoco Race Fuels, Southern Racing Fuels, who is tonight's sponsor. Our buddy Rick right there. And then Robert Howell on the bottom, Ronnie Barcelo in the middle. And then we have our Sunoco Race Fuels on the bottom right. That's Robert's computer to make sure that it's still up and running and we can get the show going. So we're going to start off. Make sure your pants are rolled up because there's going to be lots of stories told, I'm sure. And it should be a lot of fun. But we'll start out with Mike and just kind of give us an overview of how you got into it and what got you started.
Well, when I was about 8 or 10 years old, my parents took me to the old Hollywood Speedway on Pembroke Road. And I went in the grandstands and went to the races a few times with them. Really kind of enjoyed it as a kid. We moved to Margate area up around Fort Lauderdale. And my neighbor was a guy by the name of Ron Hall. He had a son that was just a couple years younger than me. And he actually leased the Palm Beach Fairground Speedway in '68. So that's how I got introduced to Palm Beach Fairgrounds Speedway. So I lived up there as a 12-year-old kid. I sold, concession stand stuff. Started racing there in 74. And in 78, I got hooked up with a guy by the name of Lamar Kyle, the Kyle family. And I drove their car. I actually drove it at New Smyrna and won the championship up there. I ended up getting the ride for the year. And we ended up winning the championship at Palm Beach in 78 in the limited late models. And then I came back and won it again in 81. Robert Hamke built me a state-of-the-art Monte Carlo with a Howell chassis and a Nova front snout. And it was ahead of its time. Me and Jim Tooney went door to door week after week. And I ended up besting him out of the championship by only just a few points. I mean, if he got out front, he won. And if I got out front, I won. And it was some pretty fun times. Him and I never had any problems. We raced door to door. So that's my Palm Beach days were very treasured to me as far as, racing there. Always got around there pretty sporty. I had people help me like Dick Anderson. Gary Blue helped me. Robert Hamke, of course, helped me by building that car for me. So I had a lot of good teachers. Buddy Griffin was good to me as a kid. So he's very dear to me.
Those are some big names too.
Yeah.
And Jen, let's talk about, we got our special guest listening tonight, watching Daryl Gwynn, a great friend of everybody here on the panel. I think we're going to talk him into doing a show of his own, maybe one-on-one with you one day, the stories he has to tell from the drag racing days. And he's a big supporter of circle track racing now, and just want to thank him for tuning in and watching tonight. I know he's on.
And congratulations.
We love Daryl Gwynn, and congratulations on your Motorsport Hall of Fame introduction of America. That's Absolutely. Big, man. Very proud of you, Daryl.
Absolutely. So, Rick, we're going to turn it over to you for a few and just kind of give us your background for the people that don't know.
I got involved around 1963, 64. My mom and dad owned a print shop down in Hollywood. And my dad used to print the programs for the old Hollywood Speedway, and then Palm Beach, and then out to Miami, Hollywood. And a guy by the name of Pat Napier used to bring the programs in, and my dad and my mom would set them up and print them, and Sheila Devine was involved in it. Well, where my dad's print shop was in Hollywood, off of 441 between Pembroke Road and Houndale Beach Boulevard, back in the late 60s, early 60s, there was probably 20, 25 race car shops all around that neighborhood. Out the back door, we had Floyd Morris and Chuck Green. Down the street, there was Freddie McLean, Tommy and Billy Holzhauser. But there was a guy down a couple blocks over that took a real interest and started letting me hang out and do things. And his name was Dick Hansborough. He's from West Virginia, ran an old 53 Mercury at old Hollywood Speedway. And he drove some cars for Clyde Johnson and Jim Bolin, and Gary Ballou was just a kid. He worked at a paint and body shop down the street. Johnny Krantz, J&S Automotive. He had an automotive shop at the other end of the street. Charlie Reagan, Tom Shank. The neighborhood was just full. It was just full of race cars. And of course, as a young kid, I didn't want no part of being in no print shop. So I'd get off of school. My mom would pick us up, and I'd get down to that print shop, get on my bike, and I'd go down the street to these race car shops, and these guys would let me hang out. And Dick Hansborough said, why don't you, bring Ricky and his sister, and y'all come over to races. We're racing Hollywood Speedway, blah, blah, blah. And we went over there, and that was it. First time I went. They ran the old supers over there with Rod Perry and Hardy Maddox, and Scarborough would come over every now and then. And so I just got hooked, and kind of took off from there, and got tied in with one or the other, built some cars. They taught me a lot of stuff about race cars, and went on from there. And in about 1969, got hooked back up with Gary Ballou again. He was building a car to go up north to run the I called them the mud buses. But in the meantime, he wanted to build a late model for Run Hialeah. So we, through Mike McQuarrie down in Opelika shop, we threw a car together in a week. 1 week, from Saturday to the following Saturday, we threw that car together from bits and pieces that McQuarrie had in the shop. And that was my really first trip to Hialeah Speedway, because I had been going to Hollywood and Palm Beach Fairgrounds on Sunday afternoons. So that was my first trip to go to Hialeah. And that was probably 69 or 70 when we built that car and went out and we won the 75 lapper season opener that year in a car that, McQuarrie helped us with a roll cage, and we had a motor, and there was an old 57 chassis laying out in the field. They gave me a can of gas and a scrub brush and a wire brush and said, here, go clean it up. And I did. That's, that's what we wanted to do. So that's how I got started. And then it just took off from there, and relationships down the road through Gary, Bobby Henry, Charlie Reagan Sr., Jr. We owned some cars, we raced, and I got in the oil business and found the Sunoco thing. And I had to make a commitment when I got married, whether I was going to keep racing and be on the road, or, provide and build a home and start a family. And I answered an ad in the Palm Beach Post looking for a race gas distributor for Florida back in 1986, interviewed with Sunoco and got the distributorship, and here we are today.
And I kind of feel like that's the best of both worlds, because you're so involved in all things racing.
Yep, we are. We, it's not just race cars, and we do drag racing. We do, everything with the kids, from go-karts to offshore power boats. I mean, it's just, it's such a variety of motorsports that we've been exposed to. And I'm going to get an opportunity this year. We're going to get to be involved with the Miami Grand Prix with a Formula One. And that's something I've never been able to do. Always wanted to go abroad and see a race. Well, it's going to be in our backyard, and we're going to be involved with support classes there, providing fuel for those folks.
And that stadium, that track they're building at the stadium is amazing. I'm so honored to have it here with us in Florida that it makes it. But Rick, is one of the most fun classes you guys get to do. You guys last weekend had the historic racing thing over at Sebring with a lot of the old Cup cars. And I know Lee Arnold from Naples that raced with Billy Bigley, I think finished third. He sent me some stuff over the weekend, but that historic club that races there at Sebring that you guys are involved with seems like a lot of fun also.
It is. And, that's a whole different group of people. A lot of those fellows, they're successful businessmen, doctors, lawyers, they're huge in their fields, and it's a hobby. It's, some guys go play golf, some guys go play tennis. They get their toys out. They have their cars prepared. They show up, they get in them, they go out, and they pay to race. And they basically race for a bottle of champagne and a podium finish and a little trophy. And they are so happy. And there's no contradicting the officials. There's nobody screaming and yelling in the grandstands, and everybody's just so appreciative. And it's a whole different mindset from other forms of racing. And there's still the competitiveness there. I mean, these guys are racing $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 Porsches, Lamborghinis, and they don't crash. They don't knock each other out. And they all get out of the car at the end of the day or the night, shake each other's hand, and hold up their bottle of champagne, and they love it. And it's good. The road racing group is, they're a special group, and they're very appreciative of everybody that supports them. And we have a lot of fun with them,
That's awesome. Daryl commented and said, thanks guys. Love watching the super modifieds at Palm Beach. We're going to move on to Ronnie Barcelo.
And as we move on to Ronnie, if you guys have any questions for anybody on the panel, submit them in. Jen's going to be monitoring it. We'll try our best to ask as many of as we can. I mean, we don't want to keep these guys all night, but we have as long as everybody's willing to stay and want to ask questions. That's what we're here for. So submit them in and move on. We'll move on to Ronnie.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good. We miss you.
I've been kind of laying low since that ordeal, but with the sportsman, but it's all good. I got my start in racing as a kid at Hialeah in the early 70s, just going and watching. like Rick, there was a couple of racers down the street, and I had to walk by their house every day going to and from school. And it was the Barnwells, and I was intrigued by these cars and started hanging out with them. And they took me under their wing, and I used to ride in the back of the truck to Palm Beach and Hollywood. And later, during high school, I started working at Hialeah Speedway, cleaning up the facility after the Saturday night fiascos. And it just was in my blood. I couldn't wait till I got behind a wheel. And the Barnwells are the biggest reason I was there. And I've watched Mike Howell and Bobby Henry and Dickie Anderson, Larry Hero, Baloo. I mean, all those growing up, it was something I would never trade for nothing in the world. It pretty much was like a bug that bit me, and I've never been able to get out of it in all these years. I enjoy the promoting side of it. I've managed, I helped manage Concord for a little bit. I had Hardyville Speedway in 2005, Hialeah Speedway in 98, 99. Always had good people behind me. I got behind the wheel in 1983. Was runner-up to Ron Regula in 85 in the street stocks. And finally, I mean, I did have a problem with running a full season for obvious reasons. But I finally got to capture a championship in 1992 in the street stocks, and I was the rookie of the year in the Thunder Cars in 92.
That's awesome.
So let me start with the first question. It's probably going to be the toughest one of all night. But since Joe Winchell's not on the panel with us because he was traveling today, Ronnie, is it safe to say you were probably the biggest cheater in the group here?
Oh, well, I don't know about that. Mike Howell's beat, I think.
That's a loaded question, Robert.
That first car motor in it, I kept telling the owner, we're going to get our tails busted. You got to get this motor out. And we went to Bob Rahilly, and he built a motor. Rahilly and Harold Grady built a motor for that car, and we did end up winning a championship. But the first few races that I raced at that car, it did have a pop-up motor. And I told him, I said, man, I get out front, I'm soft shoeing this thing, but they're going to pull the head off this thing, and we're going to be in trouble. So we finally did get a Rahilly Grady motor and ended up winning the championship that year in '78. And but other than that, I played by the rules. I really did. I didn't really fudge on anything.
Well, that brings me to a good question. So back in the day racing, what was the biggest cheat? Like, what was the biggest thing that people tried to slide through with? What's the big gray area back then?
Well, I would say motors, because we had to run flat top motors with a flat tappet cam. People would, they'd put a mushroom cam or a roller cam in their motor or put a big motor in their car. But, on big races, they'd pull the head off. I mean, I know that Jim Tuning had his motor apart 2 or 3 times, and he used to always bust my chops saying, Howell, you never get your motor taken apart. Every time I win, they pull my head off. Are you paying them to do that? And I'd laugh and say, no, I've just been lucky. They haven't pulled my head off, but he had to take his motor apart several times. So they're mainly the motor in our cars.
It would, it would vary by class, Jen. We in certain, like the street stocks at Hialeah, there wasn't much you could do, but you could cheat up the chassis or put different tires, and find different compounds. The late models, you had sliding weight, or you had some kind of traction control back then, not like what they have today, but there was each class, it had something different, and you worked the gray area. Hialeah, it was more than a track to go to Saturday night. Looking back as we age out, it was such an educational training tool, not just to go there and have fun and race Saturday night, but the relationships that we made there that now to this day, we look back and you didn't think about it then. You didn't know the memories you were making, but Mike he hung around with Anderson, and Ronnie hung around with Barnwells, and I hung around with Blue and Tuning and Henry. The things that were passed down to us, we learned how to fabricate. We learned how to build cars, not like today, unlike today so much. And not to take nothing away from these young people, control, and now they're a driver. Have they ever hung a body? Have they ever put sheet metal in a car? You had to. That's how you did it. You threw it on a trailer, you drug it down the street, and people make fun out of Joe Winchell, but that's the way we did it back in the day. And
I still say now, being of all the racetrack that I've worked at, Hialeah was a family. It wasn't just a racetrack. You could crash. The gates opened, and when the gates opened from the grandstand to the pits, not one person, well, I might be exaggerating, but not very many people went to their cars to go home. That entire grandstand's emptied out. Nowadays, as soon as the races are over, the drivers are loaded up and gone.
Yeah,
I
Nobody
noticed
goes to the
that,
stand in the
too.
pits no more.
like back when I was young. And as soon as the races were over, like we were fighting people trying to get through that gate to get to the pits to see all the drivers and the cars and sit in them. and all
Hialeah
that.
had a unique deal that stand after racing buy a case of beer. And it was like a discounted price. I don't know, back in the 70s, $6-8, whatever it was. So all of the car owners, they'd throw a couple cases of beers up on the back of these open trailers, their families, you'd stay there. Hialeah would actually shut the lights off 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, last call, everybody's got to get out of here. We got to lock up. How many nights, Ronnie? I mean, everybody just stayed in the pits, and it was such a camaraderie of fans and racers. And like he said, you might have been fighting Mike Howell last week because he knocked you out. This week you're over there drinking beer with him, or whatever. And that's just the way it was. And everybody got along. And a lot of great
I
friendships.
till the
were
sun
made,
came up many a
and
night
still
with
are
Dick Anderson
today.
and Bobby Brack. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, many, many, many times. The summer's coming up. You're out by the tree.
Yeah.
And I'm probably
By
going
the
to get in
tree.
trouble for bringing this up because I'm going to leave somebody out. But guys, is it safe to say that, and the young racers today, Ricky and Randy Anderson, Dylan Bigley, and probably Colin Allman, or probably and Michael Goddard are probably some of the last few of today's age that their parents are bringing up the right way and hanging bodies, and they're working in the shop. And these kids there's still a few kids
I
around that are
agree.
learning it the right way.
My mom didn't care. She didn't have to worry about where I was. She knew that if I wasn't at home, I was at the race shop.
My mom and dad were the same way. They knew where I was, and the guys would bring us home at night or whatever and drop us off and make sure we got in that house. But it wasn't like we were hanging out down on the street corner getting in trouble.
Yeah.
It was fun, and it was a learning, and we enjoyed
The
it.
first time
Right.
when I first went to Hialeah, one of the first race cars I drove, I was 15. I shouldn't even have been in the pits. And Butch Mike let me drive his Tornado. They had a 6-cylinder class down there, 56, 55, 57 Ford, 58 Ford with 6 cylinders. And Butch Mike let me hot lap it. And of course I spun it out. I thought I was setting the world on fire. Next thing I know, I was in the infield. But that was my first experience driving a car was Butch Mock's down at Hialeah Speedway. So I definitely had to bite then. I had a passion for it. So I finally got my first car. And I had people like Eddie Norman help me. Hell, I lost my driver's license when I was 18. He used to tow my race car to Palm Beach for me. My 55 Chevy that I got from Pete Orr. So, it's just a lot of good people helped us. I helped Billy Barnwell when I was a kid with Bob and Dick Rahilly. I used to ride a 350 Honda motorcycle to North Miami when Billy was building his Chevelle. And I took a gallon of paint that I got from the chrome yellow that he painted his cars. I put that gallon of paint on the handlebars of my motorcycle and drove down there and painted his cars when he needed to paint it when I was, 18, 19 years old. So a lot of good memories.
Yeah.
The other thing that we were allowed was we had the opportunity. We would race Palm Beach on Friday night and then go to Hialeah on Saturday night, or Hialeah Saturday night medley, and then back to Palm Beach on Sundays. So that was a whole weekend. I mean, when we knew Friday at noontime, we were going to a racetrack, and you'd bust your ass to get off your work or get the car loaded, whatever. And we did it, and it worked. But you can't get that done today. You tell these guys, hey, we're going to run, say, Auburndale Friday night, and we're going to go to 417. Oh no, can't. Times change, the prices escalate, but we did it, and it worked. And very seldom did we not make it the next day or night because our cars weren't ready. We'd go back to the shop, work all night, get them ready. 3-4 o'clock Saturday afternoon, go get a shower, get something to eat, and we were in line at Hialeah Speedway to race again. And it was
Last
good.
question for me before I let Jen go with comments and some of her questions. You guys name Baloo and the Allisons, the family, and everybody, all the history at Hialeah that you guys hung out and learned with. At what point did you guys realize that they were really the legends that you were looking up to, Dickie Anderson? And I mean, as young kids doing this, you probably just saw them as friends or mentors, but at some point you realize these guys were legends in racing and what they are today.
Well, I realized, like Dickie and Gary and Bobby Brack and those guys were legends when I got later on into my racing career. When I got into super late models and stuff like that, and them guys were kind of fading out. I actually crew chief for Dick Anderson for a while when I lived in Orlando, and we teamed up and had my motor in his car and traveled all over. So, I mean, he's always been, a real big, person to me as far as like helping me and in my life and getting me squared away on my cars and stuff. In fact, I drove his car a few times, and I was the first one to ever drive his car. So that meant a lot to me. But I knew I knew him and Gary and Brack and Billy Barnwell. Them guys were legends early on in my life. I knew they were big, important to me.
What do you think?
They were the first ones from down here, other than Red and Donnie and Bobby, you know, Gary and Dickie and Jeff Dufresne, and some others. Jackie Evans, you know, they left South Florida to go chase it, and they went up north and they were successful with it to a certain degree. You know, they got out of South Florida, they went up there, they made a name, but they would always come back in the wintertime when there was no racing in the Northeast or wherever, and came back, and they, you know, the fans enjoyed that. And then you knew that, hey, these guys are the real deal. They're going off and they're winning. They're not just winning at Hialeah or West Palm Beach on Friday or Saturday night.
Right.
Me growing up as a kid, I mean, Rahiro, Brack, Coyle, Billy Barnwell, Baloo, wherever you went, and I think the only track in the state that I never got to go to was Golden Gate. But anywhere I went and those guys were there, you knew it could be a show. I mean, to this day, I feel very fortunate that I grew up in that time period.
And we had the best in the country come to Florida every year for the Governor's Cup at Golden Gate. Yeah. Mike and Ronnie can tell you, we had Ed Howell, we had Mike Eddy. You know, we had the best of the best. And our guys from South Florida, they held their own. Hamke, Barnwell, they held their own. They went over there and we didn't get spanked and go home with our head between our tails. They did very well, and they gained the respect of racers around the country. You know, in later years with Baloo, when we were on the all pro circuit and stuff, we were racing with Trickle and Eddie and Rusty Wallace and Kowicki. Them guys knew the Florida boys. When you showed up at Nashville or Greenville Pickens or Huntsville or Birmingham, they knew we were there, and they knew we were something to be contended with because of the background of South Florida racing.
That's awesome. So they kind of set the bar higher for everybody else. They knew when these South Florida boys showed up that it was going to be a good competition.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm going to run through some comments and try to catch up on them. Trivia question from Rex Hollinger. Ronnie Barcelo, Charlie Bible had a memorable altercation near the start-finish line at Hialeah Street Stocks. Ronnie leaned into Charlie's car. Who knows what happened next?
I do.
Won't you go ahead and fill us in? What happened next, Ronnie?
Well, back then when you started in the back, there wasn't no starting in the front. If you ran up front, you started in the back. And I was coming through the field, and I got to Charlie, and he didn't move out of the way fast enough for me, so I knocked him out. And they put me to the back, and when I got to him again, he knocked me out. Well, now Randy Barnwell was the flagman, or I'm not sure for sure about, but we stopped at the start finish line, and I backed into him. And they black flagged me and sent me to the infield. It happened to be a Friday night race, and there was all pro was there. So the all pro cars were parked all in the infield. So you could not see across the track very well at all. So they ran me off, put me in the infield. And the longer I sat there and him still going, it just ate me alive. I'm like, this son of a gun is still racing. He hit me first, you know, this ain't over. So when he came in the infield to go through the X to go into the pits, I'm running between the trailers, and everybody in the grandstand yelling at him to let him know I was coming. But when I came out from in front of this truck and he saw me, his eyes were really big, and there was nowhere he could go because of the car in front of him. So I reached into the car and killed the switch and ran around to the other side. And when I got to the other side, I was greeted with a Halon fire extinguisher. And he sprayed the fire extinguisher in my face. And all I knew was when you inhaled it, Halon, it took your breath away. So I held my breath and just swung and hit him. And Hemorrhoid, of all people, grabbed me from behind and pulled me back. So Charlie gets out of the car with this 10-pound, 15-pound fire extinguisher, and I'm thinking he's going to throw it. So I just spun Hemorrhoid around on my back so we can get this over with. I end up getting suspended. Charlie's father, I didn't know how old Charlie was. Charlie's father was going to have him press charges. So I had to hide on the floorboard of a vehicle to get out of the racetrack. So I got out of the racetrack, and that night I had a few beers, and I called Charlie. I said, listen, we could wreck these things every week, or we can go to the party tomorrow at CB Smith Park, and this will be all over. So we went to the park, and we got there out of the park. And then that next night we went to the races, and as soon as we met at the front gate and walked in, me and him were having a conversation, and the cops walk up and he takes off, and I'm like, oh, I just been framed. Like I walked right into this. So the cop just got my name and information and said, hey, if his dad decides to press charges, we're gonna have to come find you. I said, well, I'll be right back there where he's at. So long story short, they didn't press charges, and we're still good friends today.
That's awesome. You know, one thing that reminded me of back in the day when I was growing up, they used to back into cars a lot more often. Now they hit him with the front end. Back then, y'all were much smarter. Y'all hit him with the tail end so that way y'all could still keep going, didn't bust a radiator. You were still good to go.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
One thing I learned from Billy Barnwell, Buddy Griffin, and Pee Wee Griffin, you hit them head on that night. And I did do that a couple of times. It had to put front clips on my car, but it does settle the score.
That was the thing I learned real fast from the Barnwells is you don't wait. It's if you wreck me tonight, you're getting wrecked tonight. That way we're both going home to work on our stuff.
Right. That makes sense. All right. Daryl Gwynn said beer can George. Elaborate, boys.
He probably drank
Rick.
more at the racetrack that I know of. Good guy, big fan, big Buddy Griffin fan, big Barnwell fan. Drank the grandstands dry as far as beer. That's how he got his name. But just a super guy, big fan at Hialeah Speedway. He was there every Saturday night.
Debbie Falco said, this is so true. Buddy Ryan said, great memories, best time of my life. Bill Price is asking how Richie Henry and Corey Christofoli are doing. We got Richie Henry tuned in. Charlie Reagan Jr. said those were the best days of his life. He sure does miss it and all of his racing buddies. Daryl Gwynn, my first job was at Rahili and Grady.
And while you're going through those, Jen, we'll let him elaborate. Me and Mike was talking a little bit before everybody got on, and people asked Mike if we're related because of our last name, and we're not. But I was telling him I never got to go to Hialeah. I really didn't get into racing till like 2007, and Hialeah was closed, but I heard all about it. Well, I teamed up with Ronnie and got to do one of the Hialeah reunions down, Ronnie, the one that was at the convention center, I think 2015. And I went up to Ronnie later. I didn't know who he was, but I must have got asked 15 times before the reunion started if I was 5x5's son. I didn't know who Bobby J was because I was running around taking pictures, and Ronnie said, oh, he was the photographer there. And somebody pulled up a picture, and I guess we kind of do look alike the way I had my hair then and all that. But it was just an honor to be, I guess, associated with somebody that was doing the same thing I did that was as great at what he did.
Bobby 5x5 was the best. He was so awesome, and he went everywhere. Tony Carino said good stuff. David White says amazing history. Being from the north, I love the races when it was north versus south. That was a lot of fun. I remember those back when I was younger. Charlie Bellavia shared a nickname with a race car setup tool. What was it?
Staggermaster.
Staggermaster. All right. Donald Weatherly is tuned in. Richie said he had a bar in his trunk. Talking about George, beer can George. Tim Weaver says, happy birthday, Robert. Joanne says, does anyone remember when no women were allowed in the pits? Yes, that didn't change until much later. I don't even know. I know my mom always went in the stands.
When they changed that and allowed them in the pits, they probably made the big mistake. They fought all the time.
Right? Let's see. Corey Christofoli is tuned in. Debbie said, I do remember that. No ladies were allowed. Scott said, good times, miss the good old days. John Wilson said, I met my wife of 51 years at Hialeah Speedway, Donnie Rutherford's sister, Pat.
Yeah. Good people.
That's cool.
John the welder.
And it's so cool how, Eugene Bryan said, beer can George's car was called the Lincoln Lounge.
It was.
You know, quick story about beer can George. Hialeah Speedway you'd check in and you would get a pit pass. Well, a pit pass was a little piece of cloth and it had a little brass colored
Safety pin.
safety pin. So that was your pit pass for the night and you would put it on your shirt. So Beer Can George, he must have collected everyone for 10, 15 years. He never paid to go in the pits. He'd find out what material was for that
What
night.
color?
And he'd go out and he had that somewhere and he would always get in. He would always get in.
He had to save that money for his beer, guys.
Oh, he had them, but he was a good person. He's a good person. Yeah. But
Dana Barlow's on. He said so many stories, most super awesome. All those I raced with were awesome, cool racers. Going out of town, as soon as they knew you were from Hialeah, they knew they were going to finish in a lower place. We had a reputation.
Yeah.
I had a good run over at Punta Gorda there for back in the early 90s when they first started, and they did not like Hialeah people at all.
Oh,
Like,
no.
I mean, they would go out of their way. They'd follow you to the motel if they had to.
They didn't want to be racing with you crazies.
we went to Naples when Bobby Henry was driving John Ellis's #1 sportsman. It was a 6-cylinder. And we went over there and we spanked them pretty good with a little 6-cylinder against their V8s, and they didn't like us, tried to crash us. We went to Auburndale. First time I ever went to Auburndale, we took that car up there and they didn't know where to put us. We went out there and I think we ran second or third in a late model race, and they didn't like it. You guys coming in from Hialeah with these chrome wheels and aluminum wheels and headers out the hood. It was fun to go somewhere and see how other people were doing things, but to also go there and be competitive too. So
Yeah.
Rick, talk a little bit about how the transition was. You said you had to make a decision. There's a lot of people, whether to keep this up as a hobby or make a living out of it. How was the transition to when you got the opportunity to work for Sunoco and now with Southern Racing Fuels, the transition from being a driver to what you do now? Was it a hard transition or was it easy because you knew the people, or what was that transition like for you?
well, I never really drove. I tried to drive one time. I had an opportunity and I drove a 6-cylinder sportsman car out the old Miami Hollywood Speedway. And like Mike said, I thought I was setting a track record. Well, I wasn't. So I determined then that I was better off working on them, building a crew chief. And I pursued that. And as years went on, then I was with Jim Tuning. We ran the All Pro, and then we wound up with Baloo. And Brenda and I were going to get married, and we just decided, we wanted to have a home and do this and do that. And we weren't so sure that we could accomplish that chasing local racing. So we got married, and I left Gary and them and told them, and everybody was okay with it. I actually talked to Larry McReynolds, and was going to go to Charlotte when they were starting the 26 Quaker State team with Kenny Bernstein. And, that was going to be relocate to North Carolina. And I think Brenda was pregnant with our first one. So anyway, I stayed local, worked around here, I was building engines and working for my father-in-law who built golf courses. And that's how I met my wife. I used to work for them and run all the electrical and do the clocks and stuff. And like I said, my mother-in-law saw this ad in the Palm Beach Post. Sunoco at that time was Cam 2. They were looking for a distributor for Florida. And I answered the ad and I interviewed, and I had 2 or 3 interviews, and they wanted to know my background, motorsports, blah, blah, blah. And it worked out, and we got the position and we became the distributor. So we found a little place in West Palm and went down and opened up a little oil company and started off selling race gas, and then said, well, we got this facility and I got to buy a truck, got to do this. So then we said, well, let's do some little oil business. We got to maximize the facility that we're paying all this rent for. So we did that, and it grew from there. And that started in 86, and in 98, I partnered up with the owner of Port, and him and I got together. And At that time, I extended the contract with Sunoco, got the Caribbean, South America, and Florida. So we handle all of that. And we've just been doing race gas, and we do, we're a full-fledged oil company, but the race gas is my baby and always has been. And that we take care of it, and we put the contracts together and cover it from Port Consolidated. And it's been a good ride, 35 years, 36 years we're going on.
No matter where I went as a promoter or racetrack, whatever, I always called Rick and said, "Hey, I'm here. I want your gas."
Right.
And not once did he ever tell me no, and he always took care of me.
John Wilson said, Rick, how many gallons of fuel have you given away? Great sponsor.
Many.
I don't count them. It's and I look at it as sponsorship, because I can remember back in the day when the guys that I were with, that they made enough money to maybe buy me a hamburger or pay my way into the races. So as things change and escalate, I understand it, and it's hard. But we try to help. I can't help everybody, but we have a great group of partners. With the short track people, boat people, everything. We're involved in a lot. So I spread it out as much as I can, and hopefully somebody else will continue it.
Absolutely. John Boyer said 13 in a row. I think he was talking about Ronnie at Punta Gorda.
Yeah, that was my claim to fame at Punta Gorda.
13 in a row.
During that time, I was driving for Jeff Dufresne. And what made that whole 13 weeks good was Dickie Anderson had, I think, either 17 or 22 or somewhere. He was up there, but he heard about this fat guy from Hialeah that was on a roll, and he showed up. He knew Jeff Dufresne, but he showed up at the track to say, to see what this fat guy was all about. And I never made it past 13 though.
So Mike, let's talk to you a little bit about, you still travel today all over the state, probably 3 or 4 weekends a month, following the people, Ricky and Randy Anderson, now Wayne when he still races. Is it Anderson's probably one of your closest families you're still close to that still races? And I know you love going out and supporting the racing, but are there any other families that you would travel all over to see them race?
No, probably not. I mean, I do go with Wayne when he races, and his boys are racing now, so I try to go every time they race. I'm real close to the family. But like I said, Wayne, I've got a picture on my website of Wayne when he was probably 8 years old, standing in victory lane with me. And I always tease him and tell him that I was teaching you how to drive them. But he surpassed many people the races he won. And I travel with him when he's doing All Pro, when he won the Slim Jim All Pro Series. He's quite a racer. I in my own mind, I tell myself I can still do this, but my wallet and my better conscience tells me I can't. Plus the job that I'm in the car business, so it's kind of hard to get away at the time when I was thinking about coming back racing. I tell myself that I can, but I think I know better. And Wayne's like, what are you even thinking about? It's so hot in these things. We're big. We don't need to be in these things. He's right. I do try to listen to him. But yeah, I go racing with Wayne and his family anytime they're racing. I have a good time with him. Me and Wayne talk on the phone sometimes 2 and 3 times a day.
That's awesome.
We tease, but Mike and I, when we're riding together, we say, maybe we ought to get a track and buy a track and go try this thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No. Guys, come on. You got free promotion right here. What you talking about?
Well, we appreciate you guys traveling as much as you do still, because you get to bring good friends and mentors of mine like Buddy Brian. I mean, he's taught me so much in what I do with photography, and what a great guy Buddy is. And he wouldn't make it to a lot of these tracks nowadays if he wasn't able to come with you guys. So we appreciate you guys still coming out and supporting.
Well, Buddy Brian is real close friends of mine. Rick, we probably go to dinner 3 times a month, all of us. And him and I spent the day together. I bought a new golf cart. Of course, he had one being built, and he went up there today and ended up buying a 2022, the twin to mine. So he's got his own golf cart to get around, but he loves going to the races. He's a dear friend of ours. We do a lot of stuff together. And yeah, he's a great guy. He is a hell of a photographer. He's helped me a lot with my website that I have with pictures. He's been giving me pictures and I've been putting them on my site. You know, the Florida Racing Memory Lane website, all those pictures on there, a lot of them are Bobby Day stuff that he gave me when I was a kid. And even some of those, the earlier pictures that I put on that site, I took as a 12-year-old kid with a little Kodak camera. So, but he's been giving me quite a few pictures to put on there, and I tag him in them so you can see that. And he's got those pictures if anyone ever wants to end up with them or buy them or whatever. He's got boxes of stuff just like I do. And the stuff that I'm putting on there's a lot of stuff people have never even seen before.
That's awesome. Kirk Bruns just threw out a challenge question. Who was a better driver, Dickie or Wayne?
Well, you know what?
Tough, right?
It's a tough one because let me tell you something. Wayne held his own against his dad. When I was helping Dickie when Wayne was coming up, and Dickie and I would go to New Smyrna, Bradenton, Lake City, and you know, Dick did that stuff for a living, and Wayne kind of did too. But Wayne would show up where we were at, and man, it seemed like every time he showed up, we ended up running into each other or something. And Dick used to tell him, "There's 4 other racetracks in Florida. You just got to come here and get on me, don't you?" But you know, don't take nothing from Dick Anderson. He was one hell of a wheelman. But Wayne's right there. He's a chip right off the old block. There ain't no doubt about it.
Right.
Not only that is Ricky and Randy. I mean, what they're doing is probably even tougher today because they're trying to do it and not follow their grandfather and father's footsteps. They're racing out on their own and doing it, and Wayne's right there behind them. But man, I give them boys a lot of credit for they're wanting to do it on their own and do it the right way and not just follow the footsteps. And they're making us proud.
Yeah, it's hard for them not to follow the footsteps because there's a big footprint there. But Wayne's very instrumental in Randy and Ricky's racing. Probably more so with Ricky now with the sportsman, but trust me, he's right there in Randy's corner too. He wants him to succeed and do well too.
Daryl Gwynn said, Mike, your picks are awesome. John Dozier comes up with a question. Hey, Ronnie, what happened to your driving comeback? He quit on us quick, didn't he? He was sick of us pretty quick.
It's on hold. I mean,
Uh-oh.
We talk about comeback and Ronnie freezes.
Right? Like I'm done with y'all. Way to throw me out there, Jen. Give it a minute.
We'll see. I'll watch
lost
and
you
see.
guys.
Oh, there he goes. There he goes.
I lost you guys. What'd you say?
How about that comeback? Did you quit on us already?
And I said after that, I'm having a new car built, but I haven't really put it out there. But I'm going to win one more. I'm going to not quit until I win one more race, and then I'm done.
Yeah. All right. Can we have like shirts made just for the event? With the middle finger on the back.
buddy Brian, they called me Mr. Excitement at Hialeah, and that guy, I don't care where he saw me at, he called me that. You know, that guy has always been good to me. Anywhere I've
Ronnie, I don't know how much longer our show is going to go. It can go as long as it wants, but I'm going to put you on the time. What's the latest update on the next Hialeah Speedway reunion that we're way overdue for?
Oh my God, I was hoping you were going to ask me about that tech shed. When you said city, I thought he told me to be right now. With the problem we're having is at one time they were limiting the amount of people you could have at the Hialeah racetrack. The problem we're having is they're going up on the price, even after they've already agreed to the price. So tentatively, and I haven't made this public to very many people at all, October 1st at the Hialeah at the racetrack to send me back the new prices and the new menus because a lot of things that we had agreed upon have changed. But it's going to happen if we got to happen in a parking lot at the Target in Hialeah, where Hialeah Speedway used to be.
Sounds good. John Boyer said Bacelo's babes. John Dozier said Ronnie will be calling Joe Winchell to drive. Rex Hollinger said, Mike and Ronnie, did you guys ever tangle with each other at the track?
No, he's too old.
Yeah, I raced a class above him. I never raced with him. I would have liked to. I'm sure I'd have probably right-reared him.
Bill Price said, don't let Ronnie fool you. He can drive a race car. I've seen him drive a race car. He does really well.
Did any of you guys ever tangle with Joe Winchell?
I never raced with Joe. Joe, when I was racing at Hialeah and stuff, he was in the class under me. And then when I moved on, I moved away. I moved to Orlando, and he went into late models. He drove Brack's car. I was pretty much done racing down there. I raced up around Orlando, New Smyrna. Then I moved all my stuff to Birmingham, to Hueytown, Alabama, and I raced up there. Peter and I have traveled around and raced. And that's how I got my name, Dirty Mike. I don't know if you've ever heard anybody call me that. They call me Dirty. Wayne and Dick, and that's what they call me when I call them, hey, Dirty. But I got that name at a little quarter-mile track in Sayre, Alabama. Pete and I was up there running the circuit, and we ended up going to this little quarter-mile track. And what do I do in the first heat race? I knocked the hometown favorite guy out. And then in the feature, they all kind of tried to gang up on me. So I just went down there and just turned them all around. I put one guy on his roof, and they were chanting Dirty Mike in the grandstands. We got police escorted out of there. Peter was like, man, I ain't coming. I never raced with Joe. I would like to race with him.
Well, I had one episode with Joe in the street stocks. I was leading the race, and Joe was driving the car that I actually won the championship with in the next year. And thanks to Joe, I got that ride because he gave it up, and he had them put me in it. But he swished me up off the corner and got me sideways, and Joe drove by me on the outside, and I chewed the steering wheel, and I swear to God, I was going to wreck him if I caught him. And he ended up blowing up. He blew up, and I ended up winning the race anyways. And we laugh about it to this day, but it was definitely, he knew that I was pissed. He knew it. And I never got to him.
When he watches this, he's going to be mad at me, and I'm sure I'll get a text message. But do you guys ever wonder the same thing I do? How does Joe luck into all these rides he gets?
Well, I don't think he lucks into anything. I think Joe's a pretty good, even at his age. I mean, my hat's off to him. He's still doing it. He's been doing it a long time, and he's still very successful at it. I think he's earned every ride he's gotten, and I think he still does a very good job as long as he's been doing it at his age. My hat's off to him. I would love to race with him back in the day. We probably would have bumped heads because we both were, headstrong, and we ran up front. But I enjoy going racing with Joe. And in the race, and I go to the races to watch Joe race.
I had to wear my Winchell shirt tonight since he couldn't be with us.
I called him today. He's up with his boy up in Carolina.
Yeah.
And I told him, are you mad at me? Why aren't you coming on? You mad at me? Because I've been putting some old timey cars on my site and telling everybody it's him. But he said he's up there with racing with his boy up there in Carolina.
So
We love him.
So now we still have the Florida Governor's Cup. New Smyrna is still putting that on every year, and it looks like, Rick, now Sunoco Race Fuel is going to be part of New Smyrna Speedway, and we're excited for that. But is there one race that you guys were proud to be on a crew with, or a race that doesn't exist anymore that you were proud of or would like to see again? Like we had the Marion Edwards and the Orange Blossom and a lot of these old races. Is there any race that you would love to see come back in memory of somebody, or a race that you were particular fond of helping win or being a crew with that won that race?
Not me. I was too young for all those races, but I never really ran late models, but once or twice in Paul McGill's car. But I ran the supers at Speed Weeks several years. I was not a contender, but I had fun. I would just go up there and drive Paul's stuff, and then as soon as the leaders were coming, I'd pull off, put it on Jack's chin, and then go to the bar.
What do you think, Rick?
Well, the one that sticks out that's not around anymore, they still have the All-American 400, which we had great success with Baloo. We had the Governor's Cup. We had success there. But the one that sticks out the best was probably 1983. It was the World Crown 300, and it was run at Jefferson, Georgia, Jeffco Speedway, and it was $50,000 to win.
Wow.
We had them all. We had Trickle, Eddie, Sauter, Baloo, everybody. And we had 70, 80 cars to start a 32, 34 car race. And that was a big one. It was 4 days, intense qualifying, practicing. It was like the Snowball Derby. And the Derbies, we had success there too. But the World Crown, I think it was maybe lasted 1 or 2 years, Mike. I can't remember. But,
yeah. I don't even, is that track open anymore? I don't even know if it's open.
Yeah, it was a hell of a racetrack, but it was just a prestigious event and had TV coverage. This was back in 1983 for a short track super late model race. But man, the stars were there, and it was a hell of a deal and a hell of a week. And probably never see a race like that. You see it on dirt, but I don't
Right.
know. It just amazes me that these asphalt tracks have to put up money like that to get the cars, where the dirt tracks can do it and they get them all the time. So haven't figured that out, but if I do, I'll let you know. We'll have a bunch of them.
Yeah, we'll definitely need to be involved in that conversation when you
Yeah.
get that figured out. Running through a couple comments, Bobby Brack was an awesome racer. John Boyer says Ronnie and Joe at Grand Prix Race-A-Rama.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Stories about that one. Go ahead and
That was
fill
another
it in.
place. That was another place I got arrested.
Sunday night go-kart track racing. We didn't get enough on Saturday night, right, Ronnie? We'd go to the Grand Prix track and race the go-karts.
Yeah, with Wesley Mills and Gerald Silvius and Bruce Griffin and Greg Griffin. Yeah, it was a mess.
Yeah.
Daryl Gwynn said his pick would have been Golden Gate. And I know I have a ton of pictures of my papa racing at Golden Gate. That looked like a really cool place.
That was one of the best ones that I went to as a kid. I started going there with Bob and Dick Rahilly in the mid 60s. And that was a very prestigious race. Everybody came to it. And yeah, I missed that one a lot at that track.
That was your snowball derby back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it.
I'm sorry I never got to go to that place.
And Buddy Suggs said I raced with Ronnie at Charlotte County Speedway around 95 to 98.
Very competitive guy.
So if you guys could build a track now to kind of favor it off any of the tracks that you've been to or raced at, or any of the tracks that are no longer here, and you had your choice, what would your track be?
That's easy. Definitely Hialeah Speedway.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Mine would be Palm Beach Fairgrounds Speedway. It's a tough place to get around. Not everybody got around there. It's tough on your equipment, but it was a fast racetrack and you could pass there. And I really miss that place.
I'd say Palm Beach too, because the way you had to drive it for a half mile wasn't like, no disrespect to New Smyrna, where you go down and run on the bottom and back up. You had to drive to the top of the hill in 1 and 2, get it turned, come off the bottom, and then bounce it out to the wall down the back straightaway. And if you missed it, it'd suck you right in.
Dog leg, and if you didn't get off at 2 right, you'd hit that wall with the right front.
It'd suck you right in there, and it was a hard place to get around when the Northerners would come down. I can remember the local guys, Crow, Ballou, Anderson, putting them in a rental car, taking them around the track to show them. They still didn't get it because they could never get around the place.
I ran Palm Beach one time. I hated it.
Yeah.
Really.
Daryl Gwynn
they-
said it took balls at Palm Beach.
We're hauling the mail there.
Right?
Yeah,
Hauling the mail.
or it had to be a little crazy. You know, maybe I had a little bit of both, but I'll tell you, Jimmy Crow got around probably better than anybody there. And as you guys know, he's a good friend of mine too. I take him to a lot of the races, and he's getting up there in age. He doesn't walk real good. His knees are kind of shot, but I'll tell you, in his day, I remember as a 12-year-old kid going to his Pure gas station on Southern Boulevard when he was building them late models and stuff. And he was out there every Friday night and Sunday when they raced, and he probably won the most races out there. Bruce Griffin's doing a tally on who won the most races there from the time the place opened until it closed in '83. And it's between him, Brack, and Dickie Anderson. But I got a feeling Crow's he's going to nudge him out by a race or two.
John said Palm Beach Speedway was hard on cars.
It was.
You wrecked, you were building a new one.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of the beast with these half miles where you're hauling the mail. You wad them up, and you're going to put a clip on, but back in then there wasn't no clip. You wadded one at Palm Beach, you building a new one.
Yeah. And Joseph said Bronson was a unique racetrack. Sure wish we could get back racing there. It's a cool little place. It was really great when Mike Cope ran it.
Yeah.
That place was immaculate.
It is a neat little racetrack, a high bank for as small as it is.
Yeah.
And, it's a shame it's just sitting up there growing weeds.
We don't want to keep you guys all night, but I'm going to let Jen run through some comments while you guys think on like maybe this last question to kind of end the show. But I want to go around to you three guys. and tell your greatest memory, or other than maybe being at Beer Can George's car, because that seemed like the place to be. What was your greatest memory or night at Hialeah Speedway, and what will you remember forever?
And
Jen,
while
I'll
you're
let him think on that while you go through some of the comments.
Terry Crisafulli said St. Augustine was a cool track. Virgil says my uncle went through the wall at Palm Beach. And I have a couple more questions too. So y'all got ideas on what your favorite memory was?
I'll go first on this one.
right.
Growing up around the Barnwells, they had a reputation of rough and tough. If you tangle with a Barnwell, you can pretty much guarantee there's going to be a fist fight involved. And so growing up as a kid and going to all these races with them and all the trouble they caused, and I finally got to race with Teddy Barnwell in the Thunder cars. And at the time, I was probably one of the top 3 or 4 drivers in the class. And Teddy was driving for Charlie Bellavia. And I did everything but knock him out. I drove under him. He cut me off. I got on the outside of him. He put me in a wall. So the one time, and I was in the points lead at the time, and I said, I'm going to drive under this guy this time. And if he comes down, we're wrecking. Well, we did. And the reputation from Teddy Brown was if he started for his car first, he was driving over the top of your car. So we're both spun out, and all I could hear is his car going trying to start. I'm trying to get mine started, and his brother's the starter. So as we pulled up there at the start finish line, his brother tells Teddy to go ahead of me and puts me in the back. We both go to the rear. And I'm like, okay, I am not passing this guy again because he's going to put me through the billboards. So this is just going to be, by the way, where we're going to finish. Well, as soon as they go green, he almost stops and points to the outside. I'm like, you lost your damn mind. I'm not going out there outside of you. But it was to the point where he was almost going so slow I had to. So I shot by him. Long story short, I drove up, finished 4th. In the pits, I could see him coming. And here, him and his wife, and he's coming to me and he said, let me tell you something, you fat little bastard. He said, if that had been anybody else, he said, I'd have whipped your ass. And I would tell you, he said, he said, when it happened, I had the biggest smile in my helmet. He said, because I knew that was like the highlight of your career. And it was. I tell that story all the time because that was like my most memorable moment in racing was racing against Teddy Barnwell and knocking him out.
That's awesome. What you got, Mike?
The main thing I remember about Hialeah Speedway was actually the trip to the track and back. I would ride with Bob Rahilly and Dick Rahilly, and Bob would have his mom's 500 Ford. We called it the Lush, and he'd run into everybody. In the Palmetto Expressway, he loved to get on someone's bumper and pong them, and then pass them in the grass, pass them in the median. So I love that stuff. Of course, we couldn't get away with it now, so I started doing it to Marty Little. I'd find Marty Little on his way to Hialeah, and I'd hit him in the bumper. And he's waving his hand, stop. But I guess my greatest memory is probably the trip to and from Hialeah Speedway with the Rahillys. I had some memories of Hialeah also, but it was mainly getting in trouble and fighting and wrecking and getting fined $250 and not being able to come back for 30 days. So,
what about you, Rick?
Had a lot of great success, a lot of wins at Hialeah with different drivers, but I think probably the most one that stands out the most to me is about 1975 with Bobby Henry. He raced for a guy by the name of John Ellis, and John Ellis was an innovator. He fabricator. He was just so far ahead of his time, and we knocked off 26 or 27 sportsman features that year, and we were pretty tough to beat. And that was a great accomplishment for a little fat kid about 19, 20 years old and living the dream, chasing race cars every Saturday night and Friday night. So that was probably one of the best memories of Hialeah, plus all of the relationships and friendships we've made through the years down there.
That's awesome. I have a few comments I'm going to run through, and then
before you get to those, you can run the rest of the way. But Ronnie, I got a suggestion. We need to make a special nomination. I think for the next Hialeah Speedway reunion, we need to put, just from this conversation alone, Beer Can George needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
Hey, Rick's talking about Bobby Henry. I got one little quick story. That's one of the races that I was racing in the Thunder cars. They switched over to sportsman cars. and I had a good top of the line equipment, and I'm running down Joe, catching Joe for like, which don't happen often, but I was catching Joe and he broke her in. So I get to Bobby Henry and he's leading and he's driving Hemorrhoid's car, Steve Dillman's car. And I mean, I was so much faster than he was, but I knew as a kid, if I wrecked him, that it wasn't going to be always going to happen. It was going to get bad. So I jacked him up a couple of times and he pointed to the outside. I'm like, well, you know what? I think we're just going to go. I was leading the points at the time. I thought, we're going to just go ahead and finish second to this one. It was a 100 lapper, but to this day, Bobby Henry brings it up every time I see him.
He is one of the nicest. I love meeting all the guys from back then because they're literally the nicest people. And I could sit around and listen to them tell me stories from back then all day long. Terry said Bobby Henry is listening. So one of the fan questions, Jason Healy says, what would you guys tell a 19-year-old going to New Smyrna for the first time?
Tighten your jock strap.
No,
Hope you're dead.
I don't think New Smyrna is that hard. I mean, the first time I ever raced there, I won. I bought a car from Bilton's. It was a car that actually Henry drove for them. I put my motor in it and I went up there. They called them, I don't even know what the heck they called them at the time, but there's 40 cars. I started dead last and won the first time. It's a pretty easy track to drive. So, you know, you can't go in there and drive over your head because that place will bite you too. But it's a pretty smooth racetrack. It's pretty easy to drive. You know, good luck if you go up there. I loved racing at New Smyrna. I won a lot of races up there.
Got anything, Rick?
New Smyrna, you know, I just hope whoever's funding you's got a lot of money, because when you tear one up there, it's going to cost you a lot.
Yeah.
You got to have a good motor. You don't go up there if you don't have a real good motor, because that's a horsepower racetrack.
Got to get up off the hill.
Double check your safety equipment, especially at these bigger tracks. Just double check it. Make sure everything's nut and bolted, all that good stuff.
Absolutely.
How about old Collier County Speedway? Anyone have memories from there?
I raced there a couple of times, and in like the bomber division, and I did good. Coming from Hialeah, never been there before. I did pretty good. That's how I met Chris Turner.
Captain Chris. All righty, let's see. Hialeah memory was Tommy King winning 3 fast truck races at that track in a row. Corey Crisafulli said Bobby Henry was awesome, such a great mentor of mine. Built all my cars in the 90s with Richie Henry.
Yeah. Bobby Henry is one of the best at Hialeah. He got around Palm Beach pretty sporty too. Good friend of mine. We talk all the time. But I raced with him, never had no trouble with him. He was really, really good at Hialeah Speedway. He won a lot of races.
A lot of these pictures that you see up on Mike's website with Junior Hanley's cars and Harvey and Blue's cars with the long noses back in the 70s. Bobby was the fabricator of that stuff. You know, they understood air. They understood what that did and what it, you know, and it was before you had rules packages like you have today in ABC bodies. But many a night, Bobby and we'd go to the shop and, all right, we're going to do this and this. And, you know, we'd get a sheet of sheet metal and start building this stuff. There wasn't none of this black plastic, you know, like they have today, and everything was molded. You had to make it and fabricate it and heat it and bend it. And he was really good with stuff like that. And, you know, like we learned a lot by just doing little things and what air would do and how to move it around on these bigger tracks.
Yeah, he learned a lot about fabricating and the noses and stuff with Gary. Gary was way ahead of his time with wind tunnel, and he surrounded himself with some real key people that taught him aero early on. And Henry, in fact, Gary is he's cloning that black 112, that Hanley car, and we bought Marty Hanshaw's car, and I took it up to North Carolina. Robbie McLeod has it now, and he's cloning that car exactly back the way that car was. And he's already said, we're going to get Bobby Henry to come up there and put the nose on this thing for us. So,
Bobby says, you guys were the greatest helpers ever.
Who said that?
Terry said Bobby's watching, and they said Bobby says you guys were the greatest helpers ever.
Well,
we just did it. You know, Jimmy Tuning and I just talked about this a few weeks ago. Everybody says, you know, how, why? Because we just got up every day. You went to the shop or you went at night and you just did it. There was no, you know, it wasn't like there was a goalpost at the end. You know, you just did it, and we had fun, we enjoyed it, and that's what we did, and it worked.
And you guys all brought up Robert Hampke and Hampke race cars a bunch of times, and obviously he's gone now, and the business has changed hands several times. But how proud does it make you guys being from down there and dealing with him to know that they brought the name back, Hampke Race Cars, and it's now the cars they put out is still under that title. I mean, it's gotta mean a lot to you guys that dealt with him building these cars in the beginning.
Yeah, it is. I think it was important that they did that. It's good to see his name and hear his name at the racetracks. Robert was really a sharp guy. His father, Bob Hampke Sr., who built unbelievable race cars, super modifieds, Rod Perry drove. And his when he built my Monte Carlo, his dad actually wired my car and handmade the headers on that car and did a lot of the stuff on my limited late model that he built. I bought all brand new sheet metal from Chevrolet and put on that car. And Hampke did that car really, he sold quite a few cars after he built that car for me, because it was the fast race car.
He was also a traveler from out of South Florida, because he would go off and run some of the NASCAR Permatex sportsman races back in the day. And he would travel from Hollywood, Hialeah, and him and Tommy Seachman, they'd take off for a weekend and they'd go to Birmingham or Huntsville or Mobile or wherever. And he had the nickname of the traveling man, and he was successful out there too.
I have one final question. You guys grew up in one of the best times in racing. The memories are absolutely awesome. I love hearing all the stories, and you guys had some of the best at the tracks with you, racing with you guys and all that. What impresses you now?
As far as what?
As far as the drivers, like, it's hard to be impressed and, you know, to be a fan when you've grown up with the best of the best. So what impresses you now with the new drivers coming up? Does something stand out to you with these new drivers that, you know, you're like, okay, that guy works his butt off and he impresses me?
What impresses me is when I walk through these pit areas, whether it's a NASCAR event or a short track or whatever, and I actually see the driver working on the car, not up in the trailer playing a video game or, you know, running around they're involved in the setup. They're involved in the communication between their crew chief or their dad or whoever's working on the car, trying to make it better. And going back to the beginning of this, and no disrespect to the up and coming generation, a lot of these kids are thrown into these situations. You're not going to play baseball. You're not going to do this. Oh, you like race cars? Okay. So we get them in these cars, and they couldn't tell you camber and caster. They can't tell you, is the rear end cocked in this thing? They, you know, and that's when I see that, and I see that working on it, then I look at some of these teams, and that driver's right in there working with their dad or his dad, or, you know, with the crew chief. And I think that goes a long way, and that's going to prepare that driver maybe for the next step up the ladder.
Yeah, I'm impressed when I go to the races these days and I see second, third generation drivers like the Bigley boys. I race with Billy Sr. And not Billy Sr., but Billy Jr. And it's good to see his kids be competitive as they are. But you know, I know they work their tail off too, and they got a good teacher with their father. And seeing, like, you know, the Andersons, how good those boys have done, you know, coming through the ranks. That stuff makes me proud when I go to a race, when I see, you know, second, third generation drivers that are still racing and coming up through there and being competitive and winning races.
What you got, Ronnie?
That's what keeps me going.
Agreed.
Like you said, the kids that are still working on their own stuff. Like, I just recently saw a picture of, I raced with Atwell's dad in the street stocks years ago, but when you see a picture of Atwell, he's working on his car. He's not sitting, like you said, playing a game or off wandering in the pits and stuff like that. So it's definitely the kids that are growing up the way we did, the way we had to do our own stuff. And some of these new kids, like you said, are so young, they don't know anything about the car itself other than get behind the wheel and drive it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
got one last one. I'm sure one of you guys can answer. I know Tommy's system, but Tommy Jr., but I always heard his dad was always called Telephone Tommy. How did he get that nickname? Did he work for a telephone company or what? I mean,
Yeah, he worked for the telephone company.
Worked for Bell South.
Yeah.
He was telephone man.
He always had good tie wraps.
That's awesome.
Good guy. Both of them are good guys.
Richie Henry.
I got a question. I got a question for you, Jen or Robert. Can you flip the camera around? Like, can I turn the camera? I wanted to show something on my computer, but I would been working on it for hours, but I didn't ever get converted over to a video or anything to make it work.
there should be a little emblem at the top of your screen, kind of like would be if you're gonna like take a picture and turn it around. I don't know for sure. Otherwise,
I use my computer. I don't ever use my cell. But just turn the whole screen around.
I'm gonna turn the thing around, and I'm gonna try to go slow so you can look at it. But once I converted this into a one line of names, I didn't realize it's like 400 inches long, so I really couldn't make a video out of it. But these are the people that we have lost, and there may be a few on there that I don't have. And I tried to go through there. Like I said, I started working on this at 5 o'clock as soon as I closed the doors, trying to get everybody updated. And if I miss somebody, private message me and let me know, and I'll add you. These are people that have either raced at Hialeah or car owners, car builders, employees, and that type of thing. So let me know if I got the camera right where you could see it.
Yes.
And while,
go
yeah.
down just a little bit.
So while he's doing that, that brings me to another good point. Don't you wish that we like had
That's good.
How about right there so I don't have to hold the phone?
That's good.
we literally could sit there and record these older racers and like store all these memories and stories and all that to have for later on, because we've lost so many and those stories are gone forever. Still more stories to tell.
Yeah.
So we want to try to do these where, you know, we get some of the older racers on and we talk about the stories and the younger generations can kind of watch it and learn about the history of the sport and how we, you know, how you guys started
And this
and
is one of the
made
many
it
we
so
want to do. I
great.
mean, we want to get Collier County Speedway and Golden Gate, and even the old Sunshine, and some of the people from these older tracks to talk about these stories. And while he's scrolling through this, Mike, I'll make sure we put it out there because
Yeah.
the history you guys preserve
It's
is
Florida
amazing.
Racing, Memory Lane, and it's just got a bunch of stuff on it. I've got still so many pictures that I haven't even attempted to put on. And if anybody out there has some old pictures of their racing friends or family, if you want to put them on there, you're welcome to put them on there yourself. If you want to send them to me, I'll put them on. I'm just trying to put some stuff out there that's I've got. This thing's only like 90 days old, and there's been like 40,000 people viewed this thing in like 3 months.
That's awesome.
So it's been big. And I'm going to make it a lot bigger. I'm going to do a reunion here pretty soon when I figure out what Ronnie's doing with his, and we're going to have T-shirts.
Anything we can do to help you,
I
Mike, let us
appreciate it. And
know.
I would like to come back. I got a tons of Pete Orr stories that I could tell when him and I were on the road with Dick and Wayne, and just you know, I could spend hours telling you guys stuff. So it's been a lot of fun. I want to thank Jennifer and Robert for having me on, and I'll come back anytime and help
We
you
love
guys
it.
with
We
this.
love
It's
sitting around
just-
talking
it's a lot
racing
of
and
fun.
telling old stories. Richie Henry said hands-on guys make the best drivers. David Sears said it was Southern Bell
Southern
that he
Bell.
worked at. Joe said doing an awesome job on your
Thank you.
site. So good job, Mike. We appreciate you guys saving those memories and
It
sharing
is,
them
and-
with us. 'Cause
And you guys, I just want to say you guys do a hell of a job.
Yeah.
I've met both of you through this whole deal over the years, and so much with so little. And I've told you before, you know, any way that we can help you, let us know. We'll try to do the best we can, but you guys just do an awesome job, and you're getting everybody's attention doing this. And if you can do something, these round tables for these other tracks, get these people involved, it's good stuff. Things happened in Florida over many, many years.
Absolutely.
and the second, third, fourth generations will be able to look back on this and listen, you know, so pretty cool. Bobby said, I miss you hugging me.
He misses you.
I love my hugs. Yes, I love my hugs. Y'all know I'm a hugger. I hug.
Griffith told me that about you.
I love hugs. We've lost
It's
a lot.
it's unreal. It's unreal. I mean, and these are a lot of people
Yeah.
I grew up with as a kid. Some of them were younger than me.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like every couple of weeks we find out we've lost another family member or
Yeah.
friend. it's, when you get up, I'm pushing 70, and it's something you think about every single day. I've decided to retire this year, and it passing away,
And
it's very
it's
tough.
amazing the impact everybody on this list that you guys has had on racing. And I don't know half of them, but I meant he was a lot younger than me, but we lost our friend Tommy Steyer way too young. And just the impact he's had on me, seeing him working on everybody's stuff and everybody he worked on. I know what a racer he could have been, but he loved helping other people. And it just amazing the skill set he did, that helping everybody and working on cars. It's amazing the skill set all these people had.
And I'm gonna be honest, my kiddo, that was his hero. So I'm pretty sure anything Cody can do to follow in Tommy's crazy footsteps, he's gonna do it.
Yeah, I met Tommy briefly here at my house when Richard had kept his truck at my house. He came up here and worked on Richard's truck. That's really the only time I was really around him, but just a good kid, a good gentleman, very smart, like his dad. Definitely gone way too soon. And that just is something we can't control. One thing I do want to close with, keep the prayers up for Mike McCrary. He's going through a tough time. Good friend of mine. I've known him since I was 12 years old. And please pray for him, because him and his family need it.
We could do a whole show on his stories. What an impact he's had on us.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
I've got a ton of them just from Arbondale.
And I want to have some of his daughters on one night with the Goslings and just with the impact that he's had on them racing. And now that they're in the Xfinity, I mean, kind of keeping his memory alive doing that. And he's still here. I mean, it's amazing what they're accomplishing.
I'm gonna tell you something. They got the mellow version of their dad.
Yeah.
I could get Gary and Dickie on here with me. It would have to be an uncensored show, but it would be incredible.
Buddy Brian said, happy birthday, Robert. You and Jennifer do a great job. Thank you, guys. And we appreciate, there's nothing that means more to us than the support of our older drivers, and our previous generations of racers, because you guys started it all. And if we're doing something right, you guys let us know. If we're doing something wrong, you guys let us know. But we appreciate the support so much. It means so much that you guys follow and, give us kudos and support.
Well, like Leroy Porter, I mean,
yeah.
When we first took over Karnac, the first thing Leroy, he sent me an email. I mean, he doesn't do Facebook. And he says, hey, I love the stuff you're putting on there, but the screen's white and the writing's right. And us older people have a hard time reading it. So we adjusted the font to black. And I mean, it's all the input everybody gives us. We do this for you guys. And it's my stress relief after work every day to get to come and do this stuff. And we love doing it for you guys and appreciate all the support and all the feedback. Don't think we'll ever take it negative. We love it, and we can only improve if you guys let us know.
And you guys do a great job. I enjoy everything you guys do. And Leroy, I raced with him quite a bit too. I got some good Leroy stories the next time we do this.
Yeah, we're definitely getting Leroy on.
I just read a comment that I had forgot. Ed Moriarty, I just added him. I apologize for that.
Oh, yeah.
I went down the list and there was probably, and it's sad to say, since we had the last reunion, I probably had to add 8 names.
Hey, we just had a special guest pop up. Joe Winchell says, I'm sorry I missed most of the show. It's okay. He can go back and watch the whole thing. But I did hear Ronnie say he was running me down in his Bobby Henry story. He's never run me down, middle finger.
It's probably my only claim to fame that I was running him down. So I'm going to make sure I tell everybody about it.
And I got my Joe Winchell shirt on since he missed that. Since he couldn't be on with us tonight, we had to show some love to Winchell.
And Ronnie, I know you're really busy, but you got to get those Sunoco shirts that you designed for us. That's going to be our next order.
Have you made it live yet?
I haven't posted that one yet. That one's the special.
That one's exciting.
Yeah, I literally sent that to Rick Williams for approval, and within 10 seconds, he said approved.
I love it. I'm so excited to get the fans those. But that's it, guys. I mean, we really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us for a bit. I love hearing everybody's stories. Let us know who the next group is y'all want to have on, and we'll keep doing these.
Sounds good. I appreciate you. I appreciate it. And happy birthday, Robert.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike.
Happy birthday, Robert. Happy
Thank
birthday,
you.
Robert. And I will keep everybody posted on the reunion really, really soon.
And
Absolutely.
you have some others in the plans too, like one for Charlotte County and all that stuff, right?
Yes, I got one for Charlotte County. I'm working on the finalization of that one as well. And I was trying to keep that one under my hat until I got all the deals done. But that one, and I will do one for Citrus County too.
I don't keep anything under a hat, Ronnie. You know me.
Don't tell Robert. Rick.
All right. Well, I'm going to sign out. It was nice talking with all you guys, and I will see you guys another time.
All right,
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care, Ronnie.
care.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you, Rick.
Appreciate you
All right.
guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Bye.
Bye.
And there wraps up another one of our shows, another hour. So what a great hour. I love these stories so much. That was so much fun. Thanks
Jen.
to the guys for coming on.
You can't keep track of time. It's an hour and a half.
Was it? Oh my gosh, it was. I haven't looked at my phone. Yeah, an hour and a half has come and gone so quickly. We could do these all night long, but I don't want to keep everybody. So thank you
I
all
think
for
the
tuning in.
I know the next one we want to do a round table with just some older people like your dad and stuff, but we got to get a Collier County one set up. Chris Turner, Ralph Goddard, Billy Bigley Jr. They're going to go 3 hours easy.
We're going to keep doing these shows. And so if you have a group that you think would be fun to come on, we can have up to like 8 or 9 people. The only problem is, we start telling stories and we all talk over each other, but it'll be perfectly fine. So send us your group suggestions. We're going to do one with like my dad and Eddie and all of them. And then we're going to do, of course, one for all the Naples boys. And yeah, we really look forward to continuing these shows and talking about our race memories. And I love it. I'm so excited. So happy birthday, Robert. I hope you enjoyed your show tonight. Great idea.
I did. We had fun. And a shout out to, I met Rick Williams for Sunoco Southern Race Rules for helping sponsor this. And I've had Leonard McHugh from Q Auto wants to jump out. I just haven't had time with work to contact him to help sponsor some of our other throwback shows and come on. Just the support we get from all you guys. We appreciate it more than you ever know.
Absolutely. So you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday. Thank you all for tuning in for an hour and a half show. And we'll see you later this week.
See you, everybody.